welcome back for episode number 142 of the weekly playback. I have a few games which I'm really excited to talk about, but before we get into the games, you might hear a loud like beep or chirping noise. So I think either one of my smoke alarms or carbon monoxide detectors, it's like the battery is dying and maybe that's why it's beeping, but I can't figure out which one is beeping because I don't see like any blinking lights and stuff like that, and I just haven't been really able to pinpoint where the noise is coming from. Or it could be like a grasshopper or a cricket stuck in my house somewhere, because that happened to my mom one time and she just had to live with that loud chirping slash beeping kind of noise until the poor bug died because she could never find it to release it outside. Yeah, so if you hear that, I apologize, but now let's get into the games that I played. Let's talk about Ofrenda. Ofrenda is a 2025 game for 1 to 4 players, designed by Orlando Sa and Andre Santos, and the art is done by Alex Rivages, and it's published by Osprey Games. And I believe that this is coming to retail in July. And I know that you can preview this at UKGE if you are there. So if you want to demo it, head over to Osprey's booth. And of course, this is a review copy, which I received from Osprey Games. So this is a kind of tile placement game with cards, and you are just trying to meet different kinds of objectives of the family members that you are trying to put into your own ofrenda. I really enjoyed this game. I played it both at a 4-player count and a 3-player count, and of course it works well at both counts. So first I'll show you some of the components before we talk about how it plays. So this is what an ofrenda board looks like. So each person's board will look the same except different colors. So you have all of the slots, and it is a dual layered board for all of the different portraits that you're going to be placing down. You have a place here to store marigolds, and you will see an infinity symbol there. So you can have as many marigolds as you want throughout the game. This is where you'll be storing any candles you collect, and you're limited to having 3 candles at any one time on your board. So you can place candles, but if you have candles in your storage, you can only have a maximum of 3. If you place a card here, you will gain a marigold. So anytime you see a symbol like that, you gain a marigold. If you see a symbol like that, you have to pay a marigold to place a card over there. And the 3 parts that have a gold border around them will score double at the end of the game if they are on their lit scoring side. And we will talk about what that means. And this is the board that goes in the middle of everyone, in which you will have your draw deck and then 4 face-up cards on the unlit side, and you'll have it's actually upside down, and you'll have 4 candles above those portraits, randomly drawn from the bag. So there are 2 draw bags. The marigolds you actually don't need to keep in a draw bag, but it's nice to have it for storage. And the marigolds are these nice wooden pieces. So I'll just show you a marigold. And on your board, there are spaces for marigolds as well. So you're going to be placing marigolds into the marigold spots, and you'll be placing candles into the candle spots. So these are the marigolds, and they come in a nice little draw bag. And then you have a bag for the candles, and the candles are cardboard. So you'll see the lit side of the candle and the unlit side of the candle, and all the unlit sides have various objectives that you are trying to meet. And I'll talk about how those come into play when you're playing. And then you have a score pad, and everyone will need a score sheet at the end of the game in order to score their ofrenda. And of course, we have all of the portrait cards. So let me just show you some of the portrait cards. So you have your lit side, which is if your portrait is on the lit side at the end of the game, then it's going to score. If it's on the unlit side, it is not going to score. So the unlit side is how you will have them placed over here. So the draw deck will be lit side face up, but then the cards that you choose from will be unlit side up so that you can see the placement rules for that portrait. And when you are deciding whether or not you want to pick it, you'll see the placement rules. And the unlit side will also show you what color the portrait is. So you'll see the background, you'll see that this is a blue portrait. You'll also see what symbol it's associated with. So this one is associated with the skulls. So those are the things that you'll see on a portrait card. And then you optionally have some objective cards that you can play with, and I do recommend that you play with them. So there are 3 different types of objective cards. There are some that have to do with the various symbols that you will see. So like, for example, this one. So if you manage to get 3 or more of these symbols in your portraits, you will take the top point token from this card. So you're going to have 1 of each type of these objectives for the game. Another one has to do with either completing rows or something like this. Like if you surround 2 candles, then you can take this. So if you have 2 candles that are surrounded by 3 cards like that, then you would take the top point token, whichever one is available. And then finally, you have some that are associated with different colors or symbols. So like this one, for example, if you had 3 or more green portraits, you would take a point token from here. So those are just some additional objectives that you can play the game with if you would like to. So how do you play? So again, this board is going to have 4 unlit portraits with 4 candle tokens above them. So on your turn, first you start the game with 3 portraits in hand. Then on your turn, you're going to select a portrait from this board. If you take the one that is farthest away from the draw deck, it's free. If you want this one, you would have to place a marigold on top of this one in order to take this one. Likewise, if you wanted the portrait in this section, you would have to place a marigold on top of each of these ones. And then of course, if you wanted this one, you would have to place a marigold on top of the first 3 cards. So when you refill, they're always going to slide down this way and the new card will come out here. And if you take a card that has marigolds on top of it, then great, now you have those marigolds in your supply. So the first thing you're going to do is take a portrait, and then optionally you can also choose to take a candle. Now if you take the candle that is directly above the portrait you just took, then that candle token is free. If you want any other candle token, you have to place a marigold on the portrait underneath the candle token that you want. So if I took this portrait, I could take the top candle for free, but if I wanted the candle from here, I would have to place a marigold on top of this portrait. Then everything slides down. So then after I've selected my portrait and optionally taken a candle, all the portraits are going to slide down and the candles are going to slide down, and you're going to refill them with a new portrait and a new candle token. And again, you are limited to having 3 candles in your supply at any one time. You will be able to put out candles, so the more candles you start placing out onto your board, then you can start collecting more candles to keep into your supply. So then after you've done that, then you take a portrait from your hand and place it into your ofrenda, or you discard a portrait for 3 marigolds. If you discard a portrait, you are going to end the game with an empty spot for each portrait you ended up discarding, because you will not be able to place a portrait if you discard one. So you're doing one or the other. You're either playing a portrait or you're discarding a portrait for 3 marigolds. When you place a portrait, there are no rules saying that you have to place it adjacent to a previously placed portrait. There's no rules like that. The only thing that you're trying to do is to meet the objectives of the various portraits. So you're going to strategically try to place those portraits in order to meet their objectives. So for example, if I put this portrait here, first of all, I'm going to gain a marigold because that symbol means I gain a marigold. Now this portrait means that the ones that are adjacent to it cannot be blue or purple. So adjacent in this game means orthogonally adjacent or diagonal. So this one and this one is adjacent to this one. Now if I had placed her here, or him, I can't, him. Now if I had placed him here, the ones that are adjacent are these 2 plus these 2 plus these 2. Now it's going to be much more difficult to fulfill this person's objective because I can't have a blue or purple in any of those spots. So these center ones are harder to achieve in terms of meeting their objectives. So I'm just going to go show you some of the different types of objectives, scoring conditions for these cards. So when you place it, you're placing it with this side up. So these ones I find are really difficult to meet, because what this means is that every adjacent portrait has to be one or the other. So every portrait that is adjacent to this one either has to have a blue background or it has to have that maraca symbol on it. I think it's a maraca. So that means this would have to have either a blue background or that symbol on it. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So again, these slash ones are much harder to meet. Now, as soon as a portrait, for example, that has something like this, the condition is met. So this one, you need 2 or more adjacent pink backgrounds. So this, you don't have to wait until all of the adjacent spots are filled in order to flip it to its lit side if its condition is met. Because this one, as long as you have 2 or more pink portraits around it, then you can flip it. So if I placed a pink here, and even if these spots were empty, I can flip it immediately once the second pink is there because I've already met its scoring condition. However, for these ones, because this one requires that every portrait adjacent to it either be a blue or have that symbol, you have to wait until all the adjacent spots are filled with portraits to see if you've met the condition. And once you've met the condition for a card, you can flip it to its lit side, which means that it will score at the end of the game. Unlit portraits will not score at the end of the game. And additionally, if it was surrounded by a gold border, it's going to score double at the end of the game. Now, candles, you will place a candle. You can place a candle, that is, once all of the spots adjacent to that candle location are filled. So now you can see that this candle has all 3 cards adjacent to it. So now optionally, I could put a candle there face up, meaning unlit side up. I don't know if that's actually the upside or the downside, but unlit side. So for example, I can put this here. So now, once this is met, if it's an in-game scoring one, I can flip it immediately once it's met, once its conditions are met. But some of them you can't score them or flip them until the end of the game. So this one is one that I could do during the game. So if I had 4 or more of those symbols, I could flip it whenever that condition is met. And candles and marigolds are going to score you extra points at the end of the game. So you definitely want to place candles and marigolds. So as soon as a candle spot has 3 adjacent cards, that is when you must choose to place a candle there. If you decide at that time to not place a candle there, you have foregone the opportunity to place a candle in this spot then. So that is a decision you must make as soon as the last adjacent card to that candle space is placed. And the same goes for marigolds. Once you have the last card placed adjacent to a marigold, you have to make the decision about whether or not you want to place a marigold there from your supply. And again, you know, you're going to be spending marigolds, but you might also be saving them in order to place them here. And you definitely want to place marigolds in these spots because that's going to get you extra points at the end of the game as well. So again, very easy. You're just taking a card, optionally taking a candle, paying marigolds if you need to, and then just placing it somewhere on your board. There is going to be analysis paralysis in this game because, oh my God, like you will find that sometimes all of the cards in your hand just do not work well together and you just cannot like manage to meet a scoring like condition for a card, and you just don't want to place a card randomly somewhere because you feel like that might mess things up. Like it can be really analysis paralysis inducing. So just be aware of that. But yeah, so basically you're taking a card, optionally taking a candle, paying marigolds as necessary, and then placing a card somewhere on your board or discarding a card for 3 marigolds. Everyone is going to have 12 turns in this game. And then you're going to go to scoring. So as you can see, there are 12 spots on this board. But again, if you discard any cards for marigolds, you are going to have some empty spots here. Okay, so now let's talk about scoring. So first thing you're going to do is on your score sheet, you're going to put an X in any space where the portrait was not flipped to its lit side, meaning you never met the scoring objective for the portrait, so you weren't able to flip it to its lit side. So it stayed unlit side up. So those are going to get a big fat X in those portrait boxes here. Then you're going to score. So for each lit portrait, so let me just talk about what you get. So each lit portrait will score you 2 points per adjacent lit portrait and 1 point per adjacent unlit portrait. So unlit portraits will still earn you points, but not points in themselves, only for the lit portraits that they're adjacent to. So again, 2 points per lit adjacent portrait and 1 point for each adjacent unlit portrait. Then for each marigold you have, you score 1 point per adjacent lit portrait. So again, marigolds you were placing throughout the game whenever you filled all the card slots adjacent to that marigold space. And so you want to definitely try to have those marigold spots filled. And the candles you definitely want to have filled. So each lit candle scores 2 points per adjacent lit portrait. So again, you want those candles, and if the candles were lit, you'll score 2 points per adjacent lit portrait. Now, there are some candles that you don't score until the end of the game. So for example, ones with this kind of a symbol on them, if you are the person with the most of that symbol of all the players, then you get to flip it to its lit side and then score 2 points per each adjacent lit portrait. But if I had this on my board and I was not the person with the most orange portraits, it would stay this side up and I would not score any points for the adjacent lit portraits. So some candles you have to wait until the end of the game to see whether you can flip them to their lit sides or not. And again, if you scored any scoring tokens from the special objective cards you had out for everyone, then you would add those points as well, and then whoever has the most points would win. So I played this game twice. The first time I played it, I won with over 100 points. So the first time I played it, I scored 102 points. And then the second time I played it, I believe I scored 60 something points. So not so great the second time. Yeah, so the first time was the 4-player game, I won, and then the second time I did not win. And again, remember that the orange spaces score double. So like, let's suppose I had a base score of 5 points for this, it would actually be 10 points. So you definitely strategically want to try to fill these spaces with ones that you know are going to flip over and score, and you definitely want the adjacent spaces to be lit as well because that's going to earn you more points, and you definitely want the candles there because you'll get more points for that. So yeah, it's a really thinky card placement game, in which you have to see, you kind of have to also plan ahead. So you're planning ahead based on what cards you have in hand, what you're seeing, but knowing that cards that you want might get taken. But you can't plan too far ahead because it's also based on luck of the draw. And that's another reason I think it's great to have these cards, because suppose the cards that keep on coming out on the board are cards that really don't work well with the cards you have and the cards that are already placed in your Ofrenda, then this is another way to kind of earn points that you might just kind of decide to pivot and focus more on achieving these objectives maybe, but that alone is not going to win you the game. Like, you really need to have lit portraits and marigolds and candles in order to do well in this game. But yeah, it's a thinky game. Like, you might not think it's a thinky game based on how simple it looks, but trust me, like, it can be really AP inducing once you get into it and you have all these different cards with all different kinds of symbols and colors and scoring requirements, and you're just trying to place them so that they can all work and you can score all of them. I would love to know if anyone ever completes a game where each portrait is on its lit side. Like, that is going to be my goal. Like, someday I want to complete a game of this where every single portrait is lit, because I think that that would be quite an achievement. I also think it would be based a bit on luck because, again, the cards that come out are what you have to work with. So there is an element of luck to it, but oh my God, wouldn't that be amazing if you get an Ofrenda where every single portrait is lit? So if that ever happens to someone, I would love to know. But yeah, really fun, enjoyable game. I really love it. I think it's just the perfect amount of rules. It's not hard to learn, but still a lot of thinking involved. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, I would definitely check this out. And yeah, so that is Ofrenda from Osprey Games. And thank you so much to Osprey for sending this to me. I really loved it. So yeah, so that is Ofrenda. So let's move on. Let's talk about Yokohama. Yokohama is a 2016 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Hisashi Hayashi, and this edition is published by Synapses Games. So I'm not sure who did the artwork for this edition because there are several different artists listed. So I have the brand new edition of this game, which came out, I think, earlier this year, so 2025. But again, this has the original year of 2016. So this is a game which I purchased myself. It is not a review copy. So in this game, you basically have contract fulfillment going on, as well as kind of like worker placement, like you're placing out your different, what are they called? Agents? No, your different like little workers, apprentices. What are they called? Your different assistants. Yes, so you have assistants and presidents. So each person will have one president and 23 assistants, though not all 23 of your assistants will be in play to start the game with. So let me just read you what this game is about, and then we can talk about how it plays. So in this game, players act as merchants vying to gain fame through successful business ventures that include collecting trade goods, learning new technologies, and developing the city's shops and trading houses. To find new business, players will need to roam Yokohama's streets in search of opportunities. So yeah, so this game takes place during the Meiji era of Japan. And this is when modernization is beginning to take hold in Japan, and Yokohama's merchants are at the forefront. So yeah, this game has like a variable kind of setup. So you're going to have a bunch of these different like tiles, and you're going to be placing those out, and that will kind of determine your setup. So I'm going to throw up a picture, but like it's kind of like a wide setup, so I couldn't like really get the whole thing in one photo, but it's going to look something like this. Like you're going to have your individual like location tiles with these other smaller like long tiles underneath them, in which players can build shops and stuff, and trading houses. So let me just show you. So you'll have a regular tile like this, and some of them, most of them will have this underneath it. The only one that won't have that underneath it is the canal tile, and the canal tile looks like this. So that's the only one that won't have that one underneath it. Yeah, and that's only used in a 3 or 4 player game. So again, you're going to have a setup that looks like this, and then there's going to be some larger boards that are associated with some of those location tiles, on which you'll have cards that you can select, or places where you can place your assistants once you've met certain conditions, and so on. So you're going to start the game, I believe, with 3 assistants already, 2 or 3 assistants placed out. So on your turn, you can place either 2 assistants in one location, or you can place 3 assistants in 3 separate locations. But before we get into that, I just want to show you what a player board looks like. So a player board looks like this. So you're going to have all of these spaces filled up with shops and, what are the big ones called? Workshops? Shops and trading houses. So you're going to have all of these filled with shops and these filled with trading houses, and you'll have all your spaces for assistants filled here. And this is just a score tracker. So as you can see, you'll have 1 assistant here and 1 assistant here to start the game, and you're going to be keeping track of your scores that way. And if you'll also start with an assistant here, and if you pass 100 points, you'll of course move that assistant down to here. So that's just a score tracker up there. And then once you've placed all your shops and everything and assistants on this board, you're going to have a number of assistants left over to start with, and you'll have, I believe, 2 shops to start with, if I remember correctly, 2 or 3 maybe. So on your turn, you're going to start the game with a couple assistants placed out, and then in turn order, you're going to take your turn. So what you're doing is you're either taking 2 assistants and placing them in the same location, or you're taking 3 assistants and placing them in 3 different locations. And then you can move. So you move your president, and if he walks through, he has to walk through areas in which you have assistants present. So that is why you need to place assistants around in different locations, so that you can walk from location to location in order to then do the action where the president ends up. So then once you land somewhere with your president, then you're going to take your action. Now, you might need to pay money as you're walking through. If you walk through an area where someone else has a president, you're going to need to pay them a coin before you can continue on your journey. And if you end somewhere where someone has a president, of course, you have to pay them as well. And if you ever place down an assistant where someone has a president, for each assistant you place down in that location, you have to pay 1 yen to that president, that player. So once you land somewhere, then you can calculate how much power you have in that location. So you will get 1 power for each assistant in that location, each president of yours in that location. So you'll always have just 1 president. If you have any shops in that location, that'll add 1 power. If you have a trading house, that'll add 1 power. And if there's a station token in play, which someone had put out previously, which could have been you from a technology card, that adds a power. Then based on the power you have, that determines the strength of your action in that location. So for example, suppose I landed here. And let's suppose I have 3 power. That would give me 3T. Now, you always want to, if you can, to try to get 4 or 5 power. The reason is because once you have 4 power, that's when you can place a shop underneath, or the other thing, the shop or a trading house underneath that board. So there's always spaces for shops, and then there's always 1 space for a trading house. And then you'll see the reward you can get. And all of these building tiles have different kinds of rewards on them. So we'll talk about what the different rewards are. But you can only place something here if you have it in your supply already. So it's not on your board, but actually in your hand already, then you can place it. Otherwise, you cannot do that. So you can only place something if you had a power of 4 or more. If you had a power of 5 or greater, that's great because you get like a special bonus token that was on top of that location. So each location that has a 5 on it comes with a bonus token of some kind. So you can collect the bonus token if you are the first person who had a power of 5 or more in that location. So here is an example. So you would have seen this there. So then that would get you 1 yen if you were the, I think that's 1. If you were the first, or is that 3? Maybe that's 3, and I can't tell. My eyes are not the greatest right now. Or like, let's suppose it was this one. This would give you a special foreign agent that you can use. And I'll talk about what foreign agents are in just a minute. So yeah, so if you had a power of 5, then you would get that token, which is great. And some locations, if you had a power of 5, will also get you points. So for example, let me try to find one of those locations that would also earn you points if you had a power of 5. So this one, for example, if you had a power of 5 or greater, you would also gain 3 points. So this tile determines which contract you can select. So next to this tile, you'll have a contracts board like this one, as I kind of showed you in the beginning. And on these are different contracts with different country symbols on them, which you're trying to fulfill by turning in various types of goods. So I'll just show you an example of a contract card. So here is a contract card, for example. So this one, you need 3 tea and 1 fish in order to fulfill this, and you would gain 3 coins and 1 point if you fulfill this. And if you fill this, you want to keep this because once you have 2 of the same country contracts filled, so for example, if I had both of these fulfilled, now I would get a special agent associated with this country. So you would pick up the special agent for that country, and then you can use that special agent. So the way special agents work is either before or after your main action phase, you can use a foreign agent. So you can only do it once per turn. So a foreign agent means that you can just basically get an extra turn without using your president. So you would just count up the number of assistants you have in a location and get to do that actions, that space's action. So that's what using a foreign agent means. So it just kind of gives you an extra turn. It can be quite beneficial. So again, you can either do that either before or after your additional action phase. Also your main action phase. Also before or after your main action phase, you can complete any number of achievement tiles or complete any number of order cards. So at the top of the board of the setup, there's going to be these achievement tiles. So for example, let's suppose you're the first person to have 5 bricks in your hand at any one time. You would get to place an assistant here for 8 points, and then every subsequent person who achieves that would get this many points. So there's going to be a certain number of 3 achievement tiles at the top for you to try to get points from as well. So there's 2 special locations. We already kind of talked about the contracts location. So another special location is the one where you can get technology cards. So if you land here, you'll look at what power you have, and that will determine which technology card you can get. So most technology cards cost a minimum base of 3 gears. So this one would be 3, this would be 3, this one would be 4 because you would have to add 1 to it, and so on. So depending on how many gears you have available, that tells you which technology cards you can take. So yeah, so technology cards will give you different kinds of abilities throughout the game. For example, this one, whenever you place an assistant during a church action, you'll gain 3 points. So technologies will give you different things. There was one technology where someone got to put out a railway token, which was really great for them. I had a university technology, which was great. So anytime I took my turn, once per turn, I could pay 1 yen to gain an assistant from my warehouse. Because otherwise, to gain an assistant, you have to activate the symbol in order to gain an assistant. So in order to gain an assistant, there's that one symbol that you have to somehow activate from somewhere. Like for example, here, if I fulfilled this this order card, then by paying 2 fish and 1 tea, I could gain something from my board as well as a point. So that thing could be either an assistant, which is free, or I could gain a shop for 2 coins, or one of my warehouses or whatever they're called for more coins. Like the first one would be 4, the next one would be 5, and so on. Trading house, I think they were called. So those ones cost money, but assistants are free. But my card basically allowed me to pay 1 yen just to get an assistant rather than trying to wait for that symbol in order to gain something from my board. So yeah, so technology cards can be very beneficial. So that is one special location. Another special location is the church. So when you go to the church, you're collecting these symbols based on how much power you have, and then you can go and place an assistant here. So yeah, so if I had a total of 5 of these symbols, I could place my assistant here, and then I could move any, so I believe that that's a move symbol, if I remember correctly. Then you can move any one assistant from one location to another, and you would also gain 4 points. So that's what that is. And then the other special location is, I believe it's called the town hall. So if you go to the town hall, you're going to be turning in these foreign goods in order to then get stuff from your board, either assistants, shops, or trading houses, and gain points. So again, you need to have these foreign goods available before you can do that. And foreign goods are harder to get in this game. There is a location where you can trade items, you can trade one item for another, and so on. So let me just find that location. Yeah, so this location, it's a trading port. So basically here, you can see all the things you can trade for over here. So as you can see, a foreign good costs 4 coins. So that is kind of expensive to get. But let's suppose I had a power of 3. I could do 3 different trades according to this thing here, and it goes both ways. So as you can see, I can spend 2 coins for 2 bricks, or turn in 2 bricks for 2 coins if I wanted. Let me just show you some of the other locations. So here you can get silks. There's a location to get fish. We already talked about a location to get contracts, and in the game I played, there were 2 different locations where you can get contracts. There's a location to get tea. There's this location that you can go to in order to get things from your board, either assistants, shops, or trading houses. This we talked about technology cards. There's a space where you can go just to get money, so that's great. Yeah, I think that basically, there's a place for bricks and so on. So yeah, so I think that this basically covers the different kinds of locations. And then here are the 2 tiles that were associated with the church, the temple, and with the town hall that we talked about. So depending on how much power you have, that would determine where you could place your assistant on the main board. So yeah, so those are the different locations. So basically what you're doing is you are strategically placing out your assistants in order to then take more and more powerful actions. So you kind of want to plan a couple turns in advance, because if you're just always doing things for that very turn that you're taking, you're never going to ramp up enough power in order to get a really good action. So you really want to try to get 4 or 5s if you can. Yeah, so again, you know, you're placing out assistance, then moving your president, and you're paying money as necessary to other players if you pass through their locations where they have their president, or if you place assistance where they have their president. So, you know, it can get tricky as you're playing because you might not have money. So there might be an instance where, which this happened to me, where I was kind of stuck because I had spent all my money, and then my president was in a location where the next two tiles next to me each had a president, so I couldn't pass through those tiles because I didn't have money to pay to those players. So I was kind of stuck. So that can happen as well. So you definitely want to plan in advance and know that you can kind of get screwed over. You definitely want to plan in advance. What else? Yeah, so you're gaining contract cards. The contract cards as well are going to score you points at the end of the game based on sets that you have. So you'll see here. So let me just talk about endgame triggers. So the endgame triggers are when any player has built all 4 of their trading houses, and the trading houses are the big ones that cost money as well to get out. Or when any player has built all 8 of their shops. When replenishing order cards, there are not enough cards to fill all empty spaces on a port management board. Or in a game with X number of players, there are X number of assistants on the church management board. Or in a game with X number of players, there are X number of assistants on the customs management board. So when any of those happens, you finish the round, and then everyone else gets 1 more turn. And then for final scoring. So again, you're keeping track of your points throughout the game because you're going to be scoring a lot of points throughout the game as well. And then this is what happens at the end. So church bonus. The player with the most assistance on the church management board receives 6 points. The player with the second most receives 3 points. Customs bonus. Again, the player with the most assistance at the customs board receives 8. The second most receives 4. Technology bonus, the player with the highest total production value on their technology cards receives 10 points. The next person receives 5. A country bonus. Now you're going to look at sets of country cards you have. So if you have 1 set of all 5 different countries, you'll get 12 points for each complete set. If you have 4 different types of countries, 8 points, 3 different types of countries, 4 points, 2 different types of countries, 2 points. And then at the end of the game, for each unused foreign agent token, 1 point. For each unused imported goods token, 1 point. For every 2 yen, 1 point. And every 3 trade goods, 1 point. And then whoever has the most points will win. So yeah, so this is one of those games where you need to plan in advance. You're going to be putting out assistants. One thing I forgot to mention is when you take an action somewhere, all your assistants come back to you. So you are going to then need to put them out again. So you're not going to keep on ramping up more and more assistants on the board to the point where it gets crowded. No, because once you take an action, your assistants come back to you. However, your president remains. There is a way to get your president back as well. Like when you use a foreign agent, you can just take your president back and then put him out later if you want to, and so on. But for the most part, your president is mostly going to just stay and move around, and you are going to be taking back your assistants and then placing them out, either 2 in 1 location or 3 in 3 separate locations. So I have the deluxe version of this game. So it comes with these nice metal coins. And I realized when we played this game the other day that I completely used the inserts incorrectly, because the coins, I guess, were supposed to go in one of these sections, but I did not do that. Or maybe it was one of these sections, like I put all the different player pieces in here, but I think the like little symbol on the bottom of the sections meant that coins were supposed to go there, but I did it this way, so whatever. So I have all my player pieces in here, and I've got my fish tokens and first player token there, and then here I've got the different goods and some of these extra tokens that you might need for certain games and stuff like that, and agent tokens and so on. Yeah, so that's how I have it. But the insert is great because, you know, everything fits really nicely in here. So yeah, so that is Yokohama. So I'm glad I finally got to play with my copy. I had ordered this from Amazon like months and months ago. I can't remember when at this point now, but I knew that it was a reprint and it was a beloved game. So I just really, really wanted to check it out, and I really enjoyed it. And I did very poorly, so I would definitely want to play this again. And just plan more in advance for my turns, because I think I didn't plan well enough. You know, I did try to plan ahead, but I think I just wasn't very good at it. So I would like to play again because it's a fun game and it goes by very quickly. Like, you know, it's not a game where there's going to be too much waiting. Like, you feel like it goes pretty quickly. So yeah, so that is Yokohama. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. So let's move on. Another game I played recently is Ginza Retro Cafe. So this is a 2024 game for 2 to 4 players. And it's interesting because for a designer, it says NA, not applicable. So no idea. And it says the same thing for artist. So no idea. But the publisher is Nenatsumo. So this is like a dice rolling kind of action point kind of game with a little bit of like contract fulfillment going on. I'll just say this, I played this several weeks ago, so now I don't remember too much about it. All I remember about it is that there's a lot of dice rolling going on and you're trying to fulfill different orders for different characters, and you're also just trying to upgrade your own abilities. I wasn't like super impressed with it. I didn't think it was the worst game I'd ever played. This is a game I backed on Kickstarter, by the way. So I didn't think it was the worst game I've ever played. I just don't think it's like, you know, all that great either. So it's just like, if you just kind of want to kill time, it might be a good game to kill time. If you appreciate the theme, if you appreciate the artwork, then you might enjoy it. And, you know, I do enjoy the artwork and the theme of the game. So it's like a Japanese cafe and the artwork is really pretty. I just really like the aesthetic of the game. But yeah, but basically you're just kind of fulfilling orders for the different customers, and you have your own kind of abilities. So for example, like I'm just going to show you an order card, a couple of them. So here's one and here's one. So for example, this one, you would need to have exactly 3 dice with 5 pips on them in order to fulfill this order card. This one, your pips would need to equal 25 or more. And when you use dice to fulfill them, they're no longer in your supply. So each player is going to have dice in their own color, and then you need to regain your dice back in order to then do other fulfillments. And each customer that comes through is going to have, a time limit on them in order for you to fulfill all of their orders. And if you do, then you get to keep that customer if you were the person, I believe, with the most orders that had been fulfilled underneath them. You know, you don't get to keep the person. I think you keep the card. If I remember correctly, you keep the card. So if you were the person who fulfilled, if you've managed to fulfill one customer's all orders before the time runs out, then whoever contributed to that card will get to keep that card. And these are going to give you points at the end of the game. So that's how that works. And if customer, and in order to show that you were the one who fulfilled a customer's specific order, you're going to put a cube of your color on that card. So suppose I met this, then one of my cubes would go on this card. So your dice don't remain on there because you will need those dice again in order to do other stuff. So let me just show you quickly a picture of what the setup kind of looks like. Yeah. So you're going to see that there's going to be like customers there with different numbers of items underneath them that they'll want. And the customer cards, let me see if I can find some customer cards. The customer cards will tell you how many cards to put underneath them of different order types. Oh, here they are. So for example, this customer would want 2 items from the stack of 1 cards. So these different items have belong to 3 different stacks. So some are going to be harder to fulfill. So you have like 1s, and then you have 2s, and you have 3s. So the 3s are going to be the hardest to fill. So for example, this is a level 3 card. So the customers, as the game progresses, they're going to get harder and harder to fulfill their orders. But again, just, yeah. So different customers will be out, and each one starts with a 2 timer token on top of it. So once the round has elapsed, then you will flip a 2 to a 1, and if they still didn't get all of their items fulfilled, then the 1 would flip to a 0 and they're gone. So basically you have 2 rounds in order to fulfill a customer's order. So yeah, so basically, you know, that's kind of it. And there's different abilities you'll have. You'll be able to upgrade your abilities as well in order to try to, you know, achieve orders. So you have these, let me show you. So everyone starts with an ability to add 1 or subtract 1 from a die. So that's an ability you can use. You have the ability to roll dice, and you have the ability to add some dice from your pool to your hand. So if you use dice and then they just stayed in your pool but they weren't in your hand, you could use this ability to then add them to your hand. And all of these can be upgraded. So you're able to upgrade these by having the necessary, like if you're able to pay, you can upgrade these. And I don't remember exactly how else you can upgrade them. There's like a, let's see. Yeah, I don't remember now, but there's a way to kind of upgrade them. Upgrade ability, yeah. Oh yeah, so if you have reached a certain number of victory points from your order cards, underneath the corresponding ability, so the colors will match up with the abilities, and if you have reached a certain number of victory points, then you can upgrade the ability to the other side. You also need to pay yen in order to do that. So yes, that's another reason you might go for certain items over others in order to upgrade a certain ability. Yeah. So it's just kind of like a dice rolling action game in which you're just kind of assigning dice to different things. It's not the most, you know, intriguing game, but it's a good way to pass time, I guess, rather than doing nothing if you have nothing to do. And again, if you like the theme of this game, then this might be something you want to check out. You know, the artwork is pretty. I like the artwork and I like the aesthetic, but I just don't think it's the most exciting of games. So yeah, so that was Ginza Retro Cafe. And again, this was a game that I had backed on Kickstarter. So let's move on. Another game I played recently is Rivages, which is a 2024 game designed by Joachim Tome, I think. Joachim Tome, and the art is done by Xavier Guinefre Duran, and it's published by Ketchup Games. And this is for 1 to 5 players, and this is a flip and write game. So I don't own this. I play this at Millennium's Play Something New. But basically, you're going to have a map, and on the map there's going to be different colored hexes, and there's going to be different symbols on there that you're trying to collect, and you're trying to get from like one boat to another in terms of your mapping of the island. But basically each person is going to get 2 cards, and you're going to cross out one line on the top of one of those cards, and that's what you're going to then map out on your own personal board. So again, it's a flip and write game. And then once everyone has done that, then you pass the cards to the left, and then based on the cards you receive, you will then again select a line of items that you want to then use or cross off on your own map. Once you have reached from one boat to another on a map, you can get a new map board and start again. So basically you're just collecting points as the game goes on. These scrolls, like these little map tokens, those are points. And you might have wilds and, you know, different things you can collect. You might be trying to reach different symbols in order to get some points. So each person on the bottom of their map board has like some objectives that they're also just trying to fulfill. And each person's map, obviously, island looks a little bit different. And on the side, you also have this one other board on the side that anytime you get like a statue symbol, you can cross off something and then go up on that in order to try to get points and so on. So yeah, it's a nice little flip and write game. I don't think it's like the most interesting of flip and write games, but it wasn't bad. Like, I enjoyed my play of it. I'm not sure that I would want to spend money on it, but you know, I've heard that the solo mode of it is good. But yeah, it was an enjoyable experience. I just don't think it was like the most exciting of games I've played in terms of flip and writes, but you know, there is a little bit of strategy and different paths you can take in order to play this game when you're playing it, and it can be a bit fun just, you know, thinking about what you want to do when you get a card, whether you want to, you know, collect some symbols, whether you want to cross off some locations on the map and go for other things. Like, yeah, good game. Just notably, the person who had the most maps in our game that we played had the fewest amount of points, if I remember correctly. So, you know, completing the most maps doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. And again, you are keeping track of points throughout the game as you're playing. But just to tell you the scores in the end, the winner had 12 points, and then someone else had 12 points as well. Then I had 11, and then the person who had the most maps and got extra points for having the most maps at the end of the game, they had 9 points. So again, having the most maps doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win, because there are other ways to get points, and you'll be collecting points as you play this game. But yeah, if you like flip and write games, and you like, you know, drawing stuff and just collecting things, then this could be something that you would enjoy. So yeah, so in that case, check it out. So that was Rivages from Catch Up Games. So let's move on. So now let's go on to games that I am backing or have received. So I'm currently still just backing those games from Bitewing Games, I think, if my Kickstarter page can load. Yes, no, actually the campaign ended, so never mind. So I'm currently not backing any board games, and I guess I kept my pledge of Gazebo in Gingham, so because that ended already. So hopefully the tariffs will not affect that publisher too much, because I did not end up canceling that. So I recently got added to Asmodee USA's media list. I don't think I was part of their media program before, but somehow I got added and I received an email from them, so I was really excited. So I selected 4 games from their catalog that I was really interested in playing, and I really like their media program. It's really great. Like the way they do it, it's so organized. Like basically they have a separate Excel spreadsheet for each person. So you will have your own Excel spreadsheet, and you will get to go through their catalog of review games available for a certain month. And I think you can go back 3 months, because I did. And you put down the SKU number of the game you want, and then they will see that you've updated your Excel spreadsheet, and then they will mark it as shipped once they've shipped it. And then there's a line available for you to add a URL for the coverage that you did for that game. So, you know, this is a really great way for them to keep track of what you're doing with their review copies, and see that you're actually playing them and making content for them. And if you have a couple of outstanding games that you haven't provided coverage for that you received, then they'll be able to put a pause on sending you any more games. So it's a really like efficient way of handling all of that. But I guess that can be expected from you know, a company that's as big as Asmodee. So, you know, they've got games from all different publishers. And so I'm really excited, because there was one game I really, really wanted. And so when I got the email from Asmodee, I was like, oh my God, yes, I was so happy. So I'm going to start with that game. So I requested 4 games from them, and they sent me all 4, which I'm really excited about. And I'm excited to play all of them, but I want to show you the one that I was most excited for. And that one is Pergola from Rebel Studio. So Rebel Studio is the same publisher that did Meadow, and I absolutely love Meadow, and this is just as beautiful as Meadow. Of course, there's no cards in this game. I'll have to open the box. I don't recall there being any cards, but I unboxed all of these games yesterday, by the way, but there's, so the artwork is really beautiful. And if you remember Meadow, that's the game in which you were kind of creating your own tableau of different animal cards and plant cards, and they were watercolor, and they were just so freaking beautiful. So when I saw Pergola, I was so freaking excited, and this game is just really beautiful. So I'm gonna show you, I was really worried about all of the components falling out of this component holder, because there's no lid for it, but the rule book fits perfectly over it, and amazingly, things do not fall out of this. Like I even tried shaking the box a little bit to see if things would fall out, and they did not. So yeah, so it comes with this component holder, because there are a lot of different components, and this goes over the center where you have different tools. So I'm just going to show you some of the different components. So some of them are like wooden, not all of them, but like you have these cute little ladybugs, and I love ladybugs. So fun fact, when I lived in London, my flat apartment always had ladybugs. So I created like a little sanctuary for them. I created like, if I ever saw a ladybug, I would like take it and move it to this like little bookshelf I had created with different plants for them. And I would just put them there. And because sometimes the amount of like ladybugs who have like injured feet or could not walk was like really high. Like I just don't understand what would happen to them, but their like little legs would always be like backwards or whatever, and they couldn't walk properly. So I always tried like rescuing them. So I created the sanctuary for them where I would move them onto a plant and I have like a little bowl of water for them and whatever. I was trying to like save the ladybugs. I don't think I succeeded, but I did my best. I was not, you know, a really good ladybug caretaker, but I tried my best. So anyway, so those are the ladybugs. And then you have these little honeybees, which I absolutely love as well. So those are really cute. You've got some butterflies. So I'm showing you all the wooden pieces first. So a lot of little butterflies, like a lot. You've got these pretty little dragonflies, and I love the dragonflies, they're so pretty. And then there's a couple big ones as well. So there's big ones in the pink and the lime green colors. So these are all the wooden pieces that are in the game, and then the rest are just kind of cardboard. So you've got like these different lanterns of different colors. So there's 4 different colors of those. You've got these like honey jars of different color. Yeah, they are different colors, it looks like as well. The tops like look, no, they're the same. Never mind. They're the same color. The insides are different. And then you've got 2 different colors of these. And then we've got several different colors of these kinds of tokens, whatever those are. We've got these boomerang looking things. Wait, this one's got like that piece of cardboard things. Okay, so I don't know what those are. They look like reeds or something. We've got these pretty purple flowers. We've got these like different rosebuds. These are so freaking pretty. Like, that's what I mean. This game is just so beautiful. And then we've got a couple of different colors of these. A bunch of those. I think I've shown you everything. Have I shown you everything? I think so. So now I'm going to show you the different tools. So there's different tools, and each tool has different symbols on them, but I'll show you the 4 different types of tools. So here's one tool, and there's a bunch of each type. So there's a bunch of each type, and in each type they have like different symbols there. And then we've got this one, and then we've got this one, and this one. So they are not like associated with different player colors or something like that. It's not like that. But talking about player colors, the things that are associated with different player colors. So once you take out that, then I'll show you what's on the bottom. So this again was on top of that. So that was on top of the component holder. And then when you look at the box, you have this. So then you have these boards, which are individual player boards. And look at how pretty those are. They are just so freaking beautiful. And then once you remove those, this is what you see. And then these are also going to go to each player. So each player will have one of these, and it looks like little stones with different bugs on them. Really just so pretty. And then each player will have one of these as well. And then you have this. I think this is like between all of the players. And then each player is going to have a frog. So each player will get to choose a frog, and the frogs come in different colors. I've become a fan of frogs because my little pond in the backyard, there's always little froggies there, and they're cute. And just sometimes they get scared of me when I come nearby, and they just jump into the pond and make a little plopping splash noise. Super cute. And then each player gets 2 water drops, and those are wood as well. So those fit nicely into this insert at the bottom. And then you have this board, and I think like this container, and I think you place tools in these as storage. And then each player I think has one of these, because there's 4 of these as well. Each player gets a birdhouse matching their frog color. And then there's a score pad. And then there's this thing. Don't know what that is. And then each player also gets one of these containers in which you're going to be holding your tools. Like, really cool. So yeah, so I mean, the insert is great. It holds everything really well. And it's just such a freaking pretty game. Like, I just cannot wait to play this. I'm really, really excited to play this because I really enjoyed Meadow. And this game is just so freaking beautiful. So really cannot wait to play this. So that arrived. Oops, that should have gone at the bottom. So let me show you the other games I got from Asmodee. After I just get this back in. 1 second. Should not take too long because of the amazing insert. Okay. So that was Pergola. So now let me show you the other games I requested. So one of the other games I requested, and we'll stick with the flower theme, is Floristry. Now this is a 2-player game, and it's got nice spot gloss on it, and I really love the kitty cat. So this is a 2-player game, and it says it's some kind of auction system. It said, I remember reading somewhere, it said it was like the first 2-player game with some Dutch auction system or something. I don't even know what that means. But each player is going to have one of these boards, and you're going to be filling it up with tiles in the middle. So it comes with a bunch of these like wooden tiles with different flower symbols on them and stuff. Now this game, when I put this down as a review copy that I wanted, I did not realize at the time that it requires an app. So I had no idea that an app is absolutely required to play this game. So there's a QR code that you can scan in order to get the app, but there's no way to play it without the app apparently. So that's an absolute must. Which is kind of disappointing because I've always said that I would prefer to play games that do not rely on an app. I absolutely love these cats, and this one reminds me of like the cats that I take care of at the colonies because there's a number of calicos there, so absolutely love it. So I guess I'll name that cat Poppy after my favorite cat at colony number 1. And then we have this. I already assembled it, but yeah. So that is Floristry. So those are all the components for Floristry. So as you can see, not much, but looking forward to hopefully playing this. Then another game I requested is Through the Desert from Rainer Knizia. Now I'm a little bit surprised that they had this because it's published by Allplay, and I thought Allplay was kind of like a big publisher, so I don't understand why Asmodee is also covering Allplay games. I'm a bit confused about that, like I don't know how that works. But it comes with really nice plastic bags. So as you guys know, I'm someone who always like takes away the cheap plastic bags and uses my own sturdy bags. But the ones that this game came with are really nice. So, and it came with enough bags. In fact, a couple extras too. So there's different camels. Like there's big camel pieces. I guess I'll just take some out to show you. And then there's different camel riders. And I got really confused about the camel riders and the different camels because the camel riders, you take, apparently, if I did this correctly, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but you take all of the camel riders that have riders of your player color, but then they come on different colored camels, and the different colored camels they come on are associated with all of the different players. So that kind of confused me, but hopefully I did that right. And then you have a bunch of your own camels in your own color. And you have like this player token. It's a bit weird because like not all of the colors match up perfectly. So like for purple, the riders actually look like this kind of like a graphite color, but really nice like little pieces, like very nicely done. And then the greens, the riders like look kind of like a limeish green, so they don't really match up with the green of the camels. With the red, the riders are actually pink. With the yellow, the riders are more of like a different kind of yellow. And with these turquoise, the riders are like this blue color. So the riders don't really match up with the camel colors. So I don't even know if I did this right. I don't even know if you were supposed to take the riders of one color and add them with the, or if you should have just taken the small camel with, I really don't know. Or maybe you should have taken the camel. No, I don't know. We're gonna have to go through the rule book when we start playing and figure out what riders you actually take, because I really don't know. But I think I did it right, because if you look at the player setup, each person has different colored camels with riders of one color. That's what it looks like. Or maybe not. Because they're actually... Because then you have all the camels over here. I really do not know. I have no clue. But yeah, but this game looked interesting, and I tend to like Rainer Knizia games, and it comes with a bunch of these cool palm trees, which are really cool. And then you've got a bunch of different tiles and tokens and stuff like that. And then the board, of course. So the board has two different sides. So it looks like it has a night side, which is so freaking cool. And then like a day side. So I definitely want to play with the night side, but maybe there's different difficulty levels. So who knows? So yeah, so that is Through the Desert, which I'm super excited to play, even though I have no idea if I put them in the correct bags or not, and whether those riders are correct or not, who really knows. But if you know, let me know. So that was Through the Desert. So I'm super excited to play this. And again, this is by Rainer Knizia, published by Allplay, and it's for 2 to 5 players. Then the last game I requested is a game I've played before, which I really enjoyed, and that is Rumble Nation, which is an area control game from Hobby Japan. And this is a new edition, and I actually have the old edition, which was only previously available in Japan, but this is a new edition so that it could be made available in America, and I requested this so that I could compare the two editions and see if there's any differences. But it's a game that I really, really enjoyed, so I'm really looking forward to playing this. So let me just show you the player board, and it's like a really easy game. It's not like an area control game that's like super duper hard. And if you've ever played the game The King is Dead, I enjoy this way more than that game. So if you're looking for a really good area control game, highly recommend this one. So different tokens. So these are all cardboard. And then the cards, let me show you the cards, and then I'll show you the different player pieces. So here are like the different action cards, and then the different peoples. Cool artwork. I'm gonna have to compare the artwork with the old edition and see what changed, if anything. And then I'll just show you, so there's 4 different player colors. So you've got blue, and you've got one big piece, and then small soldiers, and dice in your own player color. So you've got blue, black, mustard, and red. And then you've got these other white pieces. So yeah. So really looking forward to playing this. So very grateful to Asmodee for sending me these games. Really looking forward to working with Asmodee and covering games that they have, because it seems like they have a lot. So that's really, really cool. So hopefully I'll get to play a lot of games that I had on my wish list, which I did not purchase, and yeah, really looking forward to that. So thank you so much to Asmodee for sending these to me, and I cannot wait to play them, especially Pergola. So yeah, so those are my new arrivals. I don't think I've had any Kickstarters or anything like that arrive in the meantime, so let's move on. So just a quick convention update. I think I've already mentioned this, but I'm definitely not going to UKGE, and I'm already feeling major London withdrawal. So I lived in London from 2013 to 2016, which I know was not a super long time, but ever since then, I would visit London every year, except for COVID year. So I would go back and visit every single year. I think once or twice I went in August, but mostly my trip's always been in May. So I know that the time when I usually fly out to London hasn't even come yet, but I've already started feeling like the withdrawal symptoms. Like, I love London so much. In fact, I love visiting it more than I did when I lived there, because when you live somewhere, it's a totally different experience than when you actually visit. And when I lived there, I was like in a relationship that wasn't the best, and it just, you know, added to my feelings about the city. But I really love the city because it's so historical, and it's beautiful. I love walking on streets where you feel like you're just surrounded by history everywhere. It's got a great food scene. There's so many beautiful parks. One thing that I think Europe does well, which America does not, is parks. Like, when you think of parks in Europe, you go to these places and they're just so beautiful. In America, I think parks are just ugly unless they're meant to be like rose gardens, or specifically, you know, meant to be parks that are designed to bring people to view flowers. Otherwise, parks just generally, I think, are kind of ugly in America. But in Europe, parks are so beautiful. So like St. James Park in London is my favorite park. of any park in the world, and I just love it so much. And so yeah, so going through major withdrawal symptoms, not going to London this year, and I'm just going to miss it so much. But that's because I have to save my vacation days for Iraq, and you know, that trip is becoming more and more real. So I'm going to actually be booking my plane tickets this week. So everything is coming together for this trip to Iraq for 2 weeks with my family. So I'll be going to someplace really cool, so I just need to keep that in mind. But all that is to say is that I won't be at UKGE this year. So kind of starting to feel sad about it. At first I was like, I don't really care, because like last year, I think I've mentioned several times, I was actually really bored at UKGE, and I found myself just kind of sitting on the stairs at some points and just scrolling TikTok because of how bored I was while I was there. But that, again, that's probably my own fault too. I should have probably like actually pre-arranged to play more games with people and stuff like that, which I didn't. So yeah, so kind of my own fault. But yeah, so no UKGE for me this year, but I've planned my vacation days so that I will be at Essen. So definitely going to Essen. So Essen will be my next convention. So kind of a big gap between conventions for me, but that's okay. So yeah, so just wanted to give an update on that. So let's move on. So I just want to give a cat colony update because something happened which was very disturbing. So I just want to say that if you are someone who, you know, takes care of animals, like no good deed goes unpunished, right? So I was at colony number 1 and had a very traumatic experience where someone got completely undressed and started doing something very inappropriate in front of me. And then I started screaming and called the police, and then he put on all his clothes and started running away. And I was like videotaping him with my phone as he's running away. I did manage to get his face. But yeah, the police came, they, you know, I showed them the video, they did a search in the area for this guy, they couldn't find him. So then they came back and then they told me that they couldn't find him, and I went to a nearby business and told them about what happened, because there's several nearby businesses, and they said that they would check their security cameras and just kind of keep an eye on things. But based on this experience, I went out and I bought pepper spray and a personal alarm, and now I'm just kind of like, because again, these colonies are not like in the best of locations, especially colony number 1. It's like located behind a dumpster, and there's not a lot of foot traffic there. So now each time I go there, I kind of peer behind the dumpsters first and see and make sure that no one's there, because yeah, that was just very not pleasant. So that was just a really bad experience, and luckily he didn't do anything to me, but still, that what he did is still very inappropriate, and it was still very traumatizing. So yeah, so that day I was just really rattled. Like I was just really shaken up that day, that whole day after that happened. But I just hope that he does not come back and that he doesn't hurt the poor kitties or anything like that. Like, you know, I don't know, maybe he has some weird fetish with cats. I really don't know. Like, it was just really bizarre. Like, I'm just like, why would someone do that there? Like, you know, it's like right after I finished feeding the cats and putting the food in the bowls, he comes there and he just completely like takes off all his clothes and starts doing that like in front of me. Like, it's just weird. It's bizarre. I don't know. Maybe he has mental health issues that he needs to get addressed. I really do not know. I have no clue what's going on there. But yeah, so that was just a disturbing experience. And as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. But, you know, these kinds of things should not deter people from helping animals, I hope. So just always be prepared and have what you need in order to protect yourself. So now I do not go to the colony without my pepper spray and my personal alarm, which I have attached right to my keys, and I have it ready to go. Of course, unfortunately, you don't have the muscle memory in order to do things right away. Like even with the phone. So like when he was like completely naked, it didn't occur to me to start recording right away. Like when you're in complete shock, like you don't have the muscle memory to do something that you need to do right away. So when you're in shock, you just don't immediately think, oh, I need to start recording right now, like, or I need to call the police right now. Like the first thing I started doing was screaming. I was like, what are you doing? Stop that. Like, I'm going to call the police. Like I just kept yelling over and over, I'm going to call the police, without actually taking my phone to call the police. Like when you're in shock, you just kind of don't react immediately the way you should. So yeah, so I don't know how someone develops muscle memory to do the things that they need to do. Like I've noticed that about driving as well. Like when it comes to driving, like I don't have the muscle memory to immediately slam on my horn when I need to. Like it takes me like a minute before I'm like, oh, okay, I can slam on my horn. Like if someone's like backing into me or doing something which I think is going to cause an accident, I don't immediately start slamming on my horn. Like it's not, the muscle memory isn't there. So if anyone has any tips on how to develop muscle memory for something that you don't actually do, like I just don't even know how you're supposed to do that. But yeah, it's you know, it's an unfortunate thing that happened, and the world is kind of scary. But yeah, just thought I would share that, guys, with, you know, that story with you guys. And you know, and just always be prepared. And to any women out there, make sure you go buy some pepper spray and a personal alarm, because you just never know. It's yeah, okay, so that's all, I guess. So just please pray that the cats remain safe. Again, I don't think he's going to do anything to the cats, but you know, you just never know. And the cats are my top priority and worry. So yeah, so that's the update with the colonies. Oh, and I just do want to post like some photos. Like, oh my God, like it kind of feels like things just kind of bloomed and sprouted overnight, and colony number 2 is like a jungle now again, and I just really love it. I always feel like I'm kind of like in the middle of a jungle with like mini little panthers. Like I love how it's completely covered in foliage now, and the cats are more camouflaged and hidden from the public. Like I just really, really love it. It's like really nice, and it's really great for the cats. Okay, so let's move on. So let's do our fiction book club. So for this week, we were supposed to read the prologue and the first 3 chapters of Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Honestly, there's not much to say. I feel like not much happened. It's just kind of an introduction to what the book is going to be about, with this character who clearly, Viv, who clearly wants to open up like a coffee shop. So you kind of like, you know, start the prologue with her having just completed like doing something, and you know, and she's got her sword and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then she ends up in this town, and this town's got, you know, like interesting characters. So you're just kind of introduced to the characters. Yeah, so like really not much happened. So I really don't have much to say. But I, you know, it's a nice, easy read, much easier than our last book. So I do appreciate that. So I don't think it's a book that I'm going to fall asleep during or have difficulty reading at all. Like this is a very easy read. So yeah, so let me know what you think so far. Again, not much happened for us to really comment on, but for the next week, let's just read the next 3 chapters. So let's read chapters 4, 5, and 6. Because again, very easy reading, so that should not be a huge problem. Like 4, 5, and 6 is really quite short. In fact, maybe we can read more than that. Let's say 4 chapters, because you know what? It's pretty easy reading. And then the sooner we get through this, then the sooner we can start maybe the other book that this author did, if we enjoy this one, of course. So read chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, so read chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. So yeah. Then maybe we'll get into some plot. So then maybe something will really start happening that we can actually talk about. So yeah, so read the next 4 chapters of Legends and Lattes for us to talk about next week. But I hope you got your copy, Sandra, and anyone else who wants to join, please join in if you would like to. Much easier reading than the books we've done previously, and maybe a little bit more board game adjacent, because it's about, you know, these fantasy creatures and coffee shops. And as we know, there are a lot of board games about coffee and fantasy creatures. So yeah, so that is Legends and Lattes. So let's move on. So for this week, we were supposed to read the second half of chapter 9 of our nonfiction book, which is Palestine, A 4,000-Year History by Nur Masalah. So we were supposed to read from pages 276 to 306. So as we know, chapter 9 is called Being Palestine, Becoming Palestine. So this is all about how Palestinians have kind of, you know, how their national identity kind of formed. And as we've seen, it formed a long time ago, because as we know, modern day nation states, you know, are just a modern concept, but Palestinians have existed for thousands of years. And so it just kind of talks about how, this chapter talks about how Palestinians kind of have their conception of Palestinian identity and like what it means to them and so on. So, you know, I feel like there's not too much for me to talk about. I feel like it's a chapter you just kind of really need to read yourself. But just a couple things that, quotes that I highlighted. So, there's this one poet and Mahmoud Darwish, and so he was a famous Palestinian poet. And so the author says that for Darwish, the multi-layered conception of Palestinian identity is evident by the fact that it is the product of all the powerful cultures that have passed through the land of Palestine: the Hellenistic, the Persian, the Roman, the Byzantine, the Aramaic, the Arab, the Jewish, the Muslim, the Arab Jewish, the Ottoman, the British. So as you can see, Palestine has had a long and rich history with all these different cultures, and Palestinian identity is like, made up of all of that, right? Again, it talks about the printing press and the different newspapers and the name of the newspaper that came about, which is Palestine. And then he talks about why the newspaper is called Palestine and what that means. So we go into that. And Palestine was one of the earliest modern Arabic national newspapers in Palestine. It talks about how Palestinian national opposition to Zionism began to crystallize around Zionist settler activities in Palestine in the years before the First World War. So again, I think it's important for people to realize that Zionist activity began well before even the First World War, as we've seen while reading this book. So what else? There was some things that I really wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, so one of the things that really stuck out to me while reading this is the library that he talks about. So Al-Khalidi's unpublished manuscript and the library that belonged to this family. So it says in 1900, Al-Khalidi was a co-founder of the family Islamic Waqf Library, Al-Khalidiyya Library in the Old City of Jerusalem. It is one of the largest and most important Muslim family libraries in the world and a living landmark to Palestine and the Palestinian people. Now, I haven't confirmed this, but I'm assuming that this Khalidi is related to Rashid Khalidi, whose book we first read, which was the first nonfiction book we read for this book club, which was The 100 Years' War in Palestine, because we know that that author is Palestinian and is linked to a very prominent Palestinian family. Now, I would be really interested in knowing whether this library has survived, because who knows? It's in the Old City of Jerusalem, so it's not in Gaza, because Gaza has been completely destroyed. But I would love to know whether this library still exists, because as we know, Israel and Zionists have been hell-bent on ensuring that Palestinian families' lineages are just destroyed completely, and they've been destroying books, they've been destroying entire libraries to erase Palestinian history and identity. So I'm just very, very curious about that. So he read a manuscript. The author went to this library and read an unpublished manuscript. And it said the manuscript also contains a list of Zionist colonies in Palestine with their Hebrew names and with the local Palestinian Arabic names they had either replaced or were named after. So again, that this is a manuscript from a long time ago. When was this manuscript from? I can't remember. But it's a much older manuscript. So the author died in 1913, I believe. I can't find the date of the manuscript, but anyway. So again, we've already seen how so many Arabic names have been changed and stuff like that. Let's see. Yeah, and it talks about how Ruhi al-Khalidi saw the Western Zionist colonization schemes as a major threat to the indigenous people of Palestine. And he even said that it would inevitably lead to the expulsion of Arabs from the places they had inhabited for centuries. So this was, known and acknowledged by people a long time ago. And this is in 1909. So in an interview in 1909, he said that. And this is, they were well aware of what was going to happen to them, unfortunately, based on what was going on. God, can you imagine like feeling like powerless to, you know, not be able to stop your homeland from being colonized and just taken over? So it says, in a well-known letter to Zadok Khan, the chief rabbi of France and an associate of Theodor Herzl, in early 1899, al-Khalili suggested that the Zionists should find another place for the implementation of their political project. He wrote in his letter, this country is held in esteem by more than 390 million Christians and 300 million Muslims. Jewish money will not be able to buy Palestine. The only way to take it is by force, using cannons and warships, which of course they did. So he even mentioned that in the letter. Yeah, very, very sad. Yeah. And then we learn more about the British Mandate. So Jerusalem was occupied by British forces in December 1917. The League of Nations formally awarded Britain a mandate over Palestine in 1922. So back then, the official designation of the country as Palestine was universally accepted by the League of Nations, which came into existence in 1920, and by the United Nations, which was founded in 1945. So it says the term Palestinian was used to refer to all people residing in Palestine, regardless of religion or ethnicity, including those European Jewish settlers granted citizenship by the British Mandatory Authorities. So it says British authorities decided not only to link the local name of the country, Palestine, to all official institutions, units, and documents produced by the British Mandatory Government of Palestine, 1918 to 1948. They also linked some of the institutions they had helped create in the 1920s with the administrative structure and districts of late Ottoman Palestine. So then it talks about those organizations, institutions like the Supreme Muslim Council in Palestine, the Palestine Archaeological Museum, the Palestine Passport, Palestine Currency, and Palestine Stamps. Interestingly, just a side note, my brother-in-law, he comes from a family of coin collectors and stamp collectors, and he has a lot of the original Palestinian stamps, which I think is really cool. He also has a lot of really ancient coins, like so his family had been in the jewelry business and coin collecting business for many, many years. So he inherited all of these amazing coin collections and stamp collections. And he has coins that date from like way before Jesus existed, like BC this, BC that. He has coins from like the ancient Roman Empire, like ancient Greece. He has coins from like ancient, like, you know, Arabia and all of this. Like, it's just really, really fascinating to see those coins. So I had the opportunity to sit down and look at some of those coins, like just so freaking cool. So yeah, so he has a lot of the original Palestinian stamps that came about during this time period. Yeah. So yeah, the Palestine Pound and the Palestine Currency Board, and it says the currency of the state of Israel, so Israel, between 15 May 1948 and August 1948, and between 1948 and 1952, the Palestine Pound continued to be the legal tender in Israel. So, you know, when people say Palestine didn't exist, blah, 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 like, we've seen time and time again that Palestine existed. Well, maybe we can say to them, well, okay, if Palestine didn't exist, why were you using the Palestinian pound in Israel when the state of Israel was born? Yeah. The Palestine Police Force, the Palestine Railways, the Palestinian Citizenship Order and Council, the Arab Palestine Sport Federation, the Palestine Broadcasting Service, the Palestine Citrus Marketing Board, and Palestine Airways. Yeah, so as you can see, Palestine existed. So let's see. It says, in coming face to face with the existential threat of the pro-Zionist Balfour Declaration's commitments, the Palestinian nationalist movement early on had to grapple with what was to become a perennial dilemma, whether to emphasize the territorial Palestinian or pan-Arabist dimensions of Palestinian Arab identity. So then the chapter talks a bit about that. What else? Yeah, it talks about the rise of Arab nationalism and all of that. I'm not going to go into too much about that right now. Then we get into a poem that was written by let's see, Ibrahim Tukan, which became a rallying cry against British colonialism and Zionism in Palestine during the Great Uprising in the 1930s. So the poem is, "The sword and the pen, not talking or quarreling, are our symbols, our glory and covenant, and a duty to fulfill it. Shake us, our honor is an honorable cause. A raised flag, oh your beauty, in your eminence, victorious over your enemies, my homeland, my homeland." So that became the rallying cry for the Palestinians. And then you learn about the Palestine Communist Party and about how there were Jews in this Communist Party, and then how it evolved into what it is today, which now is called, what did the chapter say it was called? The book say it was called? I mean, we learned what it was called today, but now I can't find it. Well, now I can't find the name of what it's called now. But you learn that it kind of evolved into what it is today. And then there's like a whole bunch of things that he lists about the studies of Palestine and so on, and the different things that kind of opened. So that was this chapter, still talking about Palestinian identity and so on. And so now we are left with one chapter, which again is a lengthy chapter. So for next week, please read the first kind of half. I tried to find like a good kind of halfway point kind of to read. So chapter 10 is settler colonialism and disinheriting the Palestinians, the appropriation of Palestinian place names by the Israeli state. And I know for a fact that I'm going to be very, very angry and upset while reading this chapter. But read from pages 307 to the break on page 343. So stop over here on page 343, and then the time after that we'll continue onwards and finish the chapter. So read again from page 307 to 343, which I know is a lot. So that is what we will read for next time. And we are almost done. So we have 2 more weeks before we finish this book. And then I had already announced in the last video, in case you guys missed it, but I think it would be really great if we all read Genocide Bad for our next book. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, whether you would be interested in reading that. And I know you might be thinking, is this the nonfiction book club or the Palestine book club? I mean, come on, it's kind of the Palestine book club, but that's because, you know, this industry, there's really no one else talking about it. I mean, and this industry is really highly uneducated and unempathetic to what's going on in Palestine. And I understand I'm preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to people who actually do care and hence are taking part in this book club. So I don't know, but you know, we can only do what we can do to try to make a difference. And I hope that as we read these books, you are learning as much as I am learning about things that we didn't know about, so that you can keep those things in mind and educate other people. And that's how knowledge spreads, and hopefully awareness spreads, and empathy for the Palestinian people and their cause will hopefully spread. So right now it is the Palestinian book club because the genocide is ongoing, and let's get into the genocide and what's new and what's happening there and how the industry still doesn't care about it. So recently on Blue Sky, I had made a post basically just calling out certain people in the industry like I always do. And someone responded saying, those people who I called out, like, oh, can you show like how they didn't care or don't care about what's happening in Palestine and so on. And so I said to him, like, listen, I've called them out like a billion times. I talk about this in all my videos, but okay, I'll go through it once more and show you how they don't care about what's happening in Palestine, how they've remained silent, and how they continue to support Zionist publishers and their friends who, you know, support Zionism. And as we know, Zionism is the Nazism of today. And if you still don't know how evil Zionism is and what Zionism stands for, what it is, what it means to be a Zionist, like, then you need to educate yourselves. So anyway, so I want to start back with Eric Lang's post that he made after October 7th happened. So he made a post on Facebook which said, denounce terrorism unequivocally, no matter who does it. And he said, it is absolutely reasonable and logical to be opposed to the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinians while simultaneously calling for the protection of Jews in Israel and around the world. Hamas is a terrorist organization that is attacking civilians by land, air, and sea. The images of kidnapped Israelis are shocking and devastating. Given the thousands of years of persecution of Jews, please know that your Jewish friends, even if they are not in Israel, are hurting and are fearful when things like this happen and non-Jews are silent. I understand many of us are afraid to voice an opinion because the crisis there is so nuanced and hard to understand, and we are afraid of saying the wrong thing. But we can and must always use our voices to denounce terrorism and the senseless murder of civilians. So I want to know why Eric Lang has since then not spoken up to denounce terrorism by the state of Israel, by the IDF soldiers who have killed countless women and children. That is who they are targeting. Why has Eric Lang not felt the need to speak up for all the Arabs and Muslims around the world who are afraid and are hurting right now? Like, here he is speaking up for Jews all around the world when Jews around the world did not have to be fearful of their own lives when this happened, because this happened in Israel for a very specific reason. This happened on that day for a very specific reason, and that reason was to oppose the occupation, the illegal occupation of Palestine. It was to oppose the settler colonialism. It was to oppose the kidnapping of countless Palestinians who have been held in Israeli prisons without any charge whatsoever, who are getting raped every day, who are getting beaten senselessly. Like, if you look at videos of Palestinians who have been released from Israeli prisons and compare that to the hostages who have been released from Hamas, and you compare those side by side, there is no comparison. You will see how broken and the Palestinians, when they are released from Israeli prisons, you can see what hell they have been put through, whereas the hostages released by Hamas are perfectly fine when they are released by Hamas. And you can read about the countless statements that these prisoners who were released from Hamas have made about their time in captivity and how they were treated, and they were not mistreated, whereas the Palestinians who are held without charge, which includes countless women and children who are also getting raped in these prisons. And you can see what they go through. And there's been reports now. We've seen what happens in these prisons. There's absolutely no reason to be ignorant about this. Like, when Eric Lang said that, that this is so nuanced and hard to understand. It is not fucking nuanced and hard to understand. It wasn't fucking nuanced and hard to understand back in 2021 when Eric Lang gave his really shitty take on Palestine back then. And it was not hard and nuanced to understand when October 7th happened in 2023. It's not fucking hard and nuanced. It is very easy to understand if you understand what settler colonialism is, if you understand what apartheid is, if you understand what genocide is. And all these international organizations have called it a genocide. Amnesty International, genocide. ICC, the International Criminal Court, has called it a genocide. You know that it is a genocide. But here is Eric Lang, showing empathy for the Israelis and Jewish people around the world, and has since stayed silent. So where is the concern for Arabs and Muslims around the world who are obviously fearful? And they're very rightly so fearful, especially in America. Like, when you see Jews in America being fearful for their lives, I'm sorry, but it's complete bullshit, because there is no reason for them to be fearful for their lives in America. Like, if you are a Jew living in America, you do not need to be afraid. You do not need to be afraid like you need to be if you are someone who is vocal against the occupation of Palestine. Those are the people who are getting kidnapped off of the streets in America. Those are the people who are being held in detention and their families don't know where they are. Those are the people who need to be fearful for their lives. Like, Jews in America do not need to be fearful for their lives right now, and they didn't when October 7th happened either. Like, Israel is a state that was formed from land that was stolen from people. Like, and what Hamas did is resistance. Like, they were resisting the occupation of Palestine. They were resisting the fact that they have had hundreds of thousands of their own people kidnapped and held in Israeli torture prisons without any charge. And again, that includes children. Like, so I want to know, where is the statement for Palestinians? Over a year has passed and Eric Lang has not once made one statement like this about Palestinians, not one single iota of concern about Palestinians. So why is it that people in this industry always feel the need to make a statement when something happens like this, where you have Hamas or another resistance group doing something, and all of a sudden, some Israelis are killed and everyone feels the need to come out and denounce terrorism? Where is the denouncing of terrorism when the state of Israel is doing the terrorism? Where is the denouncing of the war crimes that have been happening? Where, like, countless war crimes committed by Israel? Where is Eric Lang denouncing that? Because I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. I haven't seen it on Facebook. I haven't seen it on Twitter. I haven't seen it on Blue Sky. He is not denouncing that terrorism anywhere. So clearly we can see that Arab and Muslim lives just do not matter in this industry. They certainly do not matter to people like Eric Lang. And they don't matter to people like Suzanne Sheldon. So I've already previously discussed this as well, but Suzanne Sheldon in her Twitter bio, when she was on Twitter, had anti-genocide there. Where is the talk about the genocide in Palestine? To this day, not one single word expressing any empathy for the Palestinians or denouncing the genocide of the Palestinians. Not one word. Yet Suzanne does continue to promote games by a Zionist publisher. Burnt Island Games and Kids Table Board Gaming are owned by Zionists, Helena Kappel and her husband, Josh Kappel. They are Zionists. And as I discussed in my last video, if it looks like a dog and if it barks like a dog, what is it? It's a dog. So if you speak like a Zionist and you think like a Zionist, what are you? You are a Zionist. And what are Zionists? Zionists are people who believe it's perfectly fine to kill Palestinians. It's perfectly fine to have an apartheid state. It's perfectly fine to withhold food and water and electricity from Palestinians. It's perfectly fine to kidnap Palestinians and torture them in Israeli prisons. You know, it's perfectly fine to steal their homes and have illegal settlements, even in the territories. Like, all of this is stuff that Zionists are fine with. And that was very evident in 2021 when Helena Kappel was against the words Palestinian lives matter. Like, she took issue with saying the statement Palestinian lives matter. Who on earth would take issue with a statement like that except for Zionists? So yes, Helena Kappel and her husband are Zionists, and you see countless people in this industry still supporting them and promoting their games, which Suzanne does. She still supports them. So does Our Family Plays Games. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they are still sponsored by Kids Table Board Gaming and still promote games from Kids Table Board Gaming. So here you have a Black family in America supporting a Zionist publisher openly without any shame whatsoever. And why do I focus in on the fact that they're Black? Because most Blacks in America actually empathize with the Palestinians and would be anti-Zionist, because what Black people in America have gone through is not that dissimilar from what Palestinians are going through and have been going through for over 75 years. So people who have gone through that, you think that they would empathize with the Palestinians, but not this family. No, because they need to keep their Zionist money coming in. And that is the definition of a fucking sellout and shill. So here you have all of these Zionist sellouts and shills in this industry who just will not speak up against Zionism or talk about the genocide. God forbid they mention the word genocide, because, you know, they wouldn't want to do that and hurt their pockets. So not a peep from these people about the genocide, not a peep denouncing the genocide, not a peep denouncing Israel for its terrorism and its war crimes, not a peep to, you know, denounce the Zionists in this industry who support this terrorism that is taking place. Not a peep. Yet these are the same people who would be vocal against white supremacists in the industry, or people who are anti-trans in the industry. Like, they are very vocal about that stuff, but not about the genocide, because Arab lives, Muslim lives just do not matter to them. And that goes for Rodney Smith as well, who made a statement back and I believe it was November of 23, to this Muslim content creator, Muslim Arab content creator on Twitter back then. And this Muslim Arab content creator, you know, was talking about how he's lost, you know, followers because he was outspoken against the genocide. I haven't seen this content creator speak against the genocide or talk about this issue within the last few months at all. It seems like the only person who's still talking about the ongoing genocide, which is just getting worse day by day by day, because they really just have started the final solution. You know, that's what you can call it. They've started their final plan to completely annihilate whoever is left and try to get the rest to leave. Like, if you watch the news, and when I say watch the news, you need to be following content creators on Instagram and Blue Sky and Twitter who are actually reporting from Gaza and are talking about what's actually happening, not the biased media that does not present the whole story and always presents it in a way where it presents it as though Israel is not committing these atrocities, and these atrocities are just happening, but they never say who did it or what's going on. Anyway, so going back, so Rodney Smith had made this video back in November of 2023, basically being like, oh, Kareem, I mean, I talked about this a long time ago. I'm just going to link it below, and maybe if I can find the screenshot of the transcript of his speech, I'll post it here. But basically, it was just complete bullshit, again, talking about how it's all complicated, and he really feels for Kareem for having lost followers. It was just a complete, utter bullshit statement, which then got praised by everyone in the industry, everyone who likes to pat themselves on the back for being pro-Palestinian when they're not, because being pro-Palestinian would mean actually not supporting Zionists, which all of these people still do. All of these people still support their Zionist publishers and friends and designers and all that shit. So anyway, so since this statement was made, do you think Rodney Smith has educated himself on this super complicated issue so that he can actually denounce the genocide and denounce the war crimes that Israel is committing? No. Not a single word since then. And we have not heard a single word from this Muslim content creator in the last few months about the genocide. There's Muslim content creators on Instagram. There was one who I got into it with on Instagram back when the genocide first started, because this content creator was doing a live stream with people who were in support of Israel. And I was like, what the F are you doing? Like, and this guy has a watermelon emoji in his profile on Instagram and on TikTok, yet has never once publicly condemned the genocide or said anything in support for Palestine until there was a live stream to raise money for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, PCRF, which was organized by Jillian. And Jillian is this person who's always had an issue with me because she thinks I tried to get her fired, which I absolutely did not. Complete, utter bullshit. But anyway, she thinks I tried to get her fired from her job a long time ago because she broke her company's confidentiality and released an email that I had sent to her in the public, and then I spoke to her brother who owns Capstone Games about that, and she thinks I tried to get her fired. But no, I did not try to get her fired, but that was back in 2021. And if someone is not adult enough to know how to handle a business, that's not my issue. But anyway, so she organized this Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, and one of the streamers was this Muslim content creator from Instagram. So when certain Muslims and Arabs or Arabs feel it's safe to say something or do something in support of Palestine, they will, but otherwise they are completely silent about the genocide and will continue to promote Zionist games. Like, you are a fucking sellout. You are a Zionist shill, and it's disgusting. Like, I said it before and I'll say it again. You cannot support Zionist creators. That includes content creators, that includes designers, that includes publishers, if you are pro-Palestinian. That would be no different than supporting games created by Nazis while saying that you are against the Holocaust of the Jews. No fucking different. That would be no different than supporting games created by the Ku Klux Klan while saying you are for Black Lives Matter. no fucking different. If you are supporting Zionist creators in this industry, then you are not fucking pro-Palestinian. You have no fucking integrity in that case. And the vast majority of people in this industry have no fucking integrity. And no one else is calling them out on it. Like, these people would have no problem with calling out people who are against trans rights, or who are against Black Lives Matter, or who are against the women's right to choose, and all of that. They would have no problem with calling out people who are against those things and warning their friends to not do business with those people, warning their friends to, you know, not give any attention to those people on social media and so forth, warning their friends to block those people. But when it comes to Zionism, no, Zionists just get a fucking free pass. Zionists get a free pass in this industry for supporting genocide, for supporting apartheid, for supporting the torture of Palestinians, the rapes of Palestinians, and so on. The starvation, the intentional starvation of Palestinians. Zionists just get a fucking pass time and time again. And people like Eric Lang and Suzanne Sheldon, Our Family Plays Games, Rodney Smith, all of these people are giving Zionists a fucking pass. They are the ones who give Zionists a fucking pass. These are the people that other people look up to in this industry as being the leaders of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yet they are not fucking leaders because they are Zionist shills and fucking sellouts. Like, show me one statement that condemns the genocide, that says, I do not support the genocide of the Palestinians. You will never see these people refer to what is happening in Palestine as a genocide or a Holocaust, though that is what it is, because that would upset their Zionist friends. That would upset their Zionist, you know, designers and publishers and so on. So they will never talk about the genocide. They will never condemn Israel. They will never condemn the war crimes that are being committed. They have stayed utterly silent. And this is the litmus test of our generation, of this time period right now. This is the litmus test. You know, when Eric Lang posts things on Facebook like, oh, like, you know, what you're doing right now is what you would have done during World War II. He's not talking about Palestine. He's talking about what's happening in America with Trump as president, which is complete bullshit, because like there's literally a genocide going on. And when people say what you would have done during World War II when the Holocaust is happening is what you're doing, what you're doing right now is what you would have done during World War II in the Holocaust. They're not talking about Trump's policies in America. They're talking about the genocide. But stupid people like Eric Lang use that, phrase, that comparison, to talk about Trump's policies in America. But no, people are saying that if you are silent right now about the genocide, you would have been silent about the genocide of the Jews during World War II. That is what that statement is for. It's not about all of Trump's other shitty policies with respect to trans rights or whatever, what have you, in America. It's with respect to the genocide. Like, the genocide is the biggest, issue that the world should be concerned with right now. Like, the things that Israel is allowed to get away with should terrify the world. It should terrify Americans. It should terrify Americans that Israel is basically controlling this country. The Israeli lobby, how strong is the Israeli lobby? How many of our tax dollars go to Israel? Just look at how strong Israel is, that it is becoming a crime to speak out against Israel. It is becoming a crime to boycott products that are from Israel. It is becoming a crime to do that. Like, politicians are trying to literally make it a crime for people, for individuals even, to boycott Israeli companies. So if you do not understand the threat that Israel poses to America, you are fucking stupid. Like, there is no other word for it. You are just fucking stupid. And I'm just so sick of all the fucking stupid people in this industry who are turning a blind eye to the biggest problem that exists today, to the biggest tragedy that exists today, and they just don't fucking care. They don't fucking care about babies being beheaded by Israel, when it's been proven that all those claims that Israel made about Hamas on October 7th turned out to be a lie. There were no women raped. There were no babies beheaded. There were no babies put into ovens. All of that was disproven. All of those lies were used to then go forward and give legitimacy to the genocide that Israel has continued to commit since October of 2023. Those lies were used for them to justify everything that they are doing. And just remember, when pro-Palestinians say every accusation is a confession, it really is. Everything that the Zionists accuse Palestinians of doing turns out to be false, and they're doing it themselves. They're fucking doing it themselves. Like this whole lie that they've been telling for years about Palestinians are used as human shields. No, it's the IDF that has been using Palestinians as human shields. We've seen evidence of this. We've seen concrete evidence of this, photographic evidence of the IDF using Palestinians as human shields. Yet zero evidence has ever been put forth to show that Hamas uses Palestinians as human shields. Like, lie after lie, the babies in the ovens, beheaded, lie after lie. Yet look at what the Israeli government does to Palestinians. They do everything that they accuse Hamas of doing. Like, that's all they ever do. So, and again, so I've talked about this video after video. I've given screenshots of what people have said. I've given, screenshots of all of this stupid hypocrisy and, double standards that exist in this industry, and people continue to not care. People continue to remain silent. People don't want to ruffle feathers. Like, I've been unfriended and unfollowed by so many people in this industry, people who I have not even addressed or called out by name, but they don't like it when you say shit about their friends. Their friends who are, Zionists or supporting other Zionists and so on. Like, no one wants to hear shit said about their friends, because then that's saying something about them too. Like, what kind of a person are you if you claim to be for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but then your friends are Zionists? Like, what kind of a person are you then? Like, are you really in favor of diversity, equity, and inclusion? When you say you're against genocide, are you really, when you are friends with people who support the genocide of the Palestinians? Like, people don't like being confronted with that uncomfortable feeling of knowing that they have no fucking integrity. So then people like me get unfriended and blocked and so on. I lose business, that all happens because people don't like sitting with the feeling that they are not who they say they are. And that is the number one reason, like, someone like me gets unfriended and unfollowed for being on the right side of history, because people don't want to confront what they are themselves. They don't want to confront that. No one likes to confront those uncomfortable feelings of not having integrity, of not being who they are, of not being who they say they are. So yeah, so all these people, like, back in 2021, when all these people claim to be pro-Palestinian and were telling everyone how dangerous I am for outing Helena Kappel as a Zionist, where the fuck are these people now? Like, where are your statements about Palestine now? Like, why aren't you protesting? Why aren't you making statements in the board game industry? Like, where the fuck are you? I don't see anything. But they had no problem back in 2021 calling me dangerous and saying that I'm problematic. Well, try that now. Like, I would love for these people to call me problematic or dangerous now, because what would that say about them? That would say that, yeah, they are in favor of genocide, that, yeah, they really, really don't want to upset their Zion-Nazi friends. They really cannot say shit, because what could they say? Like, they've remained completely silent for over a year, haven't said shit, haven't called me out for calling them out, because they know that what I'm saying is 100% true. Like, if you support Zionism, then you support genocide. There are no ifs or buts about it. And again, if you think like a Zionist, if you speak like a Zionist, you're a fucking Zionist. If you think like a Nazi and you speak like a Nazi, you're a fucking Nazi. Like, people who talk like Nazis but don't actually come out and say, I'm a Nazi, like, do you think people like Eric Lang are going to be like, oh yeah, it's fine to do business with them because they haven't actually openly declared themselves to be Nazis? Oh, they haven't actually openly declared themselves to be members of the KKK, so go ahead and do business with them. No, that's not how it works. So if someone is thinking like a Zionist and speaking like a Zionist, they're a fucking Zionist, and you should not be doing business with them. You should not be giving them their games any attention whatsoever if you are against the genocide of the Palestinians. So all these people are going to continue to remain silent because they're fucking hypocrites. They have double standards. They're fucking Zio-Nazi shills and sellouts. And until they actually are able to confront that truth, this is the way it's going to be. And I'm always going to be the single person in this industry calling this shit out. Because no one else is. There's like 2 other people who are both Arabs who I've seen on Facebook calling it out, but unfortunately they're not very big voices. They're, you know, they're not content creators. No one's really listening to anything that they say. One of them will even post on, you know, make comments on Eric Lang's posts talking about how bad Zionism is, and Eric Lang just ignores every single comment of his. Like, they just don't give a shit. They really just don't give a shit. So these are the people that the masses in the board game industry look up to as the leaders of diversity, equity, and inclusion, when in fact they are all just fucking hypocrites and Zionist shills and sellouts. So that is the state of the board game industry, and yeah, so that is where we are. And they should all be fucking ashamed of themselves. They should be seriously fucking ashamed of themselves. But do you think people like that feel any shame whatsoever? No, they don't. They don't feel any shame, but that is why they are staying silent. Like, it's easier for them to just stay silent and go about their business of supporting their Zionist friends rather than actually confronting the truth within themselves. So that is the recap. And yes, things are getting far worse in Palestine. If you haven't been paying attention, Trump is trying to deport over 1 million Palestinians from Palestine to Libya, which America completely fucked up. Yeah, and this is what happens. This is what American imperialism is, right? America fucks up Libya, so now it's like, oh, let's go and get them to take in all the Palestinians, even though they have no connection to that land. Like, what the fuck? Like, this whole world is just so fucking messed up. Yeah, so the intensity with which Palestinians have been getting killed, it has ramped up. Like, you know, we're seeing hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians killed every night while the world just does not give a shit. You know, you've still got your distractions in this world. You've still got people paying attention to things like the Met Gala and Eurovision and all these other things that are meant to distract the average person. Because as long as the average person is distracted with all the shit that doesn't actually matter, then powerful entities can get away with committing genocide. They can get away with their colonialism. Like, as long as you're fucking distracted, they can get away with all of this stuff until there is that critical mass protesting out in the streets and, you know, causing mayhem and, you know, actually making the governments rethink their positions. They're going to continue to get away with it and do what they want. So that is the state of the world that we are in, where people are happy to be distracted by things that don't fucking matter, so that genocides can continue to happen. This is the first genocide in history that is being live streamed, and it's being allowed to happen because of people who just don't give a shit and are completely silent. People like Eric Lang, people like Rodney Smith, people like Suzanne Sheldon, people like Our Family Plays Games, people like all the people in this industry who people admire as being the leaders of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's their silence and the silence of everyone like them that allows this to continue and happen. So yeah, so that is the state of the world that we are in, and people still don't care. Like me, I've been talking to this camera for over a year now, trying to get others to speak up and say stuff to these people, to get them to realize what they're doing and how their silence is wrong. And is anyone saying anything to them? Highly doubt it, because they continue to remain silent and apathetic to the genocide. So it looks like it's just me against everyone in this industry, and that just fucking sucks, but that's the way it is, I guess. But anyway, so to the person who asked me on Blue Sky, like, this is kind of just a recap. And again, I've talked about this numerous times with all kinds of screenshots. And if you want to go back and watch my videos, you are more than welcome to. There's a shit ton of them in which I call out the people in this industry. And, you know, during election season, when Eric Lang was trying to get us to vote for the genocidal bitch Kamala Harris, yeah, I was calling him out then, and now all of a sudden here he is talking about how the Democratic Party doesn't give a shit about people, which is what people like me were saying back then. And also, in case you people don't know this, it came out that in fact, Biden and Harris never once pressured Israel for a ceasefire, which is what people like me were saying back then, and no one was listening. We said it time and time again that we were not going to vote for Genocidal Joe or Holocaust Harris because they were allowing the genocide to happen, and we were right. We were right, and we knew it all along. And yeah, and the fact that Kamala didn't have the number of votes she needed to win, that's not on us. Like, that's on you. That's on you people who have stayed silent about the genocide, because people like me who withheld our votes for, Holocaust Harris, we told you we were not going to vote for that bitch for as long as she supports the genocide, which she does. So the fact that we have Trump as president, that's on you people who stayed silent about the genocide, and it forever will be, because you just have no fucking integrity and just don't care about the things that actually fucking matter. And now you have people like Eric Lang talking about how the two-party system is broken and the Democratic Party doesn't care about you, blah, 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 which is what I had been saying all along during election season. You reap what you sow. And Trump sucks for everyone. I'm not happy about him being president. I wanted Jill Stein as president, the only candidate who was speaking out against the genocide. So I will endure Trump because we have to, but the fact that he's president is on you people who were silent about the genocide. So that is my rant of the week. So let's move on. This week's question of the week is inspired by Ofrenda. Now, I think Day of the Dead, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's only a Mexican holiday, or is it celebrated in Spain as well? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I should have looked that up before I started shooting this video, but I know it's definitely celebrated in Mexico, and I want to know what other Day of the Dead games there are, or Mexican-themed games there are that you know about, and which ones do you like, and leave the names in the comments below. This is my first Day of the Dead themed game, and I absolutely love it, so it's definitely staying in the collection because it's a really great game, but if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. And until next time, bye!